as soon as they've all appeared, we're good to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So hello, everybody. Welcome to day 3, session 2. And we had somebody's dog in the background just now, so maybe just check that you're not relaying your neighborhood to us all. So as usual, we'll start with some meditation, and then that'll set us up for the teaching. So once we're settled, just letting whatever's happening happen. Just aware experience as it is. Be a sense of settling. The body settling into our posture. settling into the present moment. And letting that sense of settling become a wave of relaxation down through the body from the crown of the head. So the face relaxes, the jaw, the throat, the neck and shoulders, the arms and hands let go. A wave of relaxation coming down through the trunk, down to the heart center, the diaphragm and the solar plexus, down into the abdomen and the lower abdomen. The pelvis, down through the thighs and the knees, the calves, down to the feet. Now feeling all the points of connection with the ground. The actual sensations. Warm or cool. Sense of pressure. And from there, a sense of putting down roots into the earth. sensing or imagining how the body becomes unshakable. And from there, letting the body take its full height. Take up its full space. Which helps us to breathe well and easily. Bringing awareness into the body, letting that awareness be as kind and curious about our experience now as possible. And see how simple we can allow this experience to be. Do we need to be commentating on what's happening? Do we need to be for or against what's happening? Do we need a sense of someone doing the meditation? Just alive, aware sensations. Now awareness focusing particularly on the breathing. And particularly the out breath. Letting the out breath open into an awareness of spaciousness. And letting that become so spacious, it leads us into vast blue sky. In whatever direction we move our awareness, just limitless blueness. No restrictions, no boundaries. Open and free. And now, out of the blue sky, out of the limitless creativity of mind, here's a great circle of lotuses. Soft, open, all the qualities of the open heart. And beyond them, a great wall of vajras. All the qualities of stability and dynamism. All those qualities of mind. And beyond the Vajra wall, a great ring of flames. all the clarity and clear knowing of the mind. And these qualities protect us, protect our retreat, and form the boundary of our bodhicitta mandala. So within them is the place where we all meet on this imaginal level. A place where we're all seated together. And at the heart of the mandala are the awakened qualities, embodied in whatever form or forms appear for us. Or if there are no forms, this felt sense of being in the presence of enlightenment, whole mandala pervaded by love and compassion. Whole mandala pervaded with energy. And clear knowing. And if it feels right to us, we could take a little time to make offerings. Offerings to awakening. This bodhicitta mandala is a kind of deva realm in which whatever you want will just appear. Now from the refuge, from the center of the mandala, come rays of light to all of us. We just open to the influence, the qualities, the adhisthana. Taking them deep into our body-mind. And now, if we're ready, we can make the transition from that imaginal level back to an awareness of the body, bringing a sense of the qualities that we experienced. Bringing those with us. Now starting to check that we're fully embodied. We can feel the support of the earth. Noticing any sounds around us. And dedicating the merits of punya to all living beings. Especially all those who are so dominated by their immediate sense experience. That they have no awareness of the limitless nature of their minds. And all the free and beautiful ways in which we can experience. So it looks like most of you are back from that. It's a bit longer than I intended. So this morning we have Ben on tech, and he should have sent you something that I produced yesterday about skillful ways of giving, with some questions that you may or may not find helpful.
I haven't sent it yet.
Oh, he hasn't sent it yet. So no, he hasn't sent it yet. But it's on its way. It's somewhere heading your direction. via some satellite or other. So yesterday we spent some time looking at Tonglen, and we've also been doing some meditations looking at different areas in which we can give. So we've done something about giving material things, and in session 3 yesterday we practiced giving friendliness and love. So it's not so long before we have a break. So I think what I'm going to do, just rather than launch into something and then have to stop rather suddenly, I'm going to look at 1 or 2 questions and things that I've had which connect to Tonglen and things that we've been talking about so far. So I've had a good handful of questions so far. So let's start with this one. We won't start with that one. Where should we start? Yeah. You said yesterday, listen and take in that part of yourself which isn't convinced about the Dharma. This is stuck in my mind. Can you say anything more on why this is useful and not just undermining? I think there's some real wisdom in what you're saying. I'm sure there must be. But how do you get to it? So I said something along the lines of listen and take in that part of yourself which isn't convinced about the Dharma. I was encouraging us to notice the resistances to giving and suggesting we didn't simply sort of push them aside. And it depends. It's a bit like hindrances in meditation. Sometimes things come up in meditation and they're just kind of pulling at your attention a little bit, but you just engage with whatever your focus of meditation is, and they just disappear. But if something keeps coming back, then there comes a point where it's like you need to make the distraction your meditation, because otherwise you just split. It's like you're trying to meditate on this, but you're being pulled towards that, but now you're trying to meditate on this and you're pulled towards that. There comes a point where, no, you just really give attention to what seems to want attention, and you really go into it and look at it and explore it in whatever way you need to do. So it's the same with the parts of ourselves, to use that language, and it can be useful sometimes, the part of ourselves which isn't convinced about the Dharma. I mean, if it's just a kind of small, I don't really feel like doing it today, that's one thing. But if there's kind of ongoing objections to practicing the Dharma, then we need to kind of go and meet those parts, really understand them, understand what their objections are, befriend them, and hopefully we gradually lead their energy into our practice. What we don't want is to kind of leave things there sort of in the background year after year, or even month after month, because that can happen with Dharma practitioners, because we want to be identified with ourselves as a good Dharma practitioner. We feel we shouldn't have doubts and difficulties, really. And so when they come up, we just keep pushing them away, but they never resolve. Yeah. It's a bit like being in a relationship which you're actually not very happy with, you're not getting on very well. The other person keeps kind of criticizing you and sort of undermining you, but somehow you've got used to it and you don't quite know how it would be without them. So you never kind of really sit down and have the conversation about whether we should carry on living together or not, if you see what I mean. Yeah, so we need to, with the doubts and the difficulties, we need to sit down and, in a kindly, friendly way, really find out, okay, well, what are the issues? And we do it in an open-minded way, open to the possibility that how we're trying to practice, or the view with which we're trying to practice, isn't actually a very effective one for us, which is why we're getting doubts and resistance. Yeah. Sometimes we're trying to practice in a rather rigid kind of, this is how I do it way, which is leaving aspects of ourselves out, for instance. So we need to, we're always looking for an integrated practice. We're looking to draw energy, from all the different aspects of ourselves into the Dharma, so that we gather a momentum with our practice. So where there are doubts and resistance, well, one way of thinking is, that's interesting. There's a whole lot of energy there that I haven't managed to draw into my practice yet. So let's go and find out about that, because that would be great, to draw in the energy of that aspect of ourselves, to use those terms. You get the idea? So if we do it in that way, then it's not just undermining. I think sometimes we sort of push things away because we're scared of them. We're scared that if we listen to their objections, actually we'll agree with them and they'll somehow undermine our practice and we'll give up. But actually I think we can all trust our practice that, there's enough behind it that we will keep going. We'll keep going. Okay, so that was that. Another one. Well, yes, there's quite a long one, which is it's discussing Tonglen. And it's somebody, if I can paraphrase it, who for years has sort of shied away from Tonglen because they were doing it, sort of taking in the sort of dark smoke and finding that very unhelpful. From their background, apart from not enjoying taking in this sort of dark, gungy stuff, it also played into their conditioning, which was a lot about kind of guilt and sort of taking on the sins of the world. And so they'd sort of stopped doing Tonglen, pretty much. But then they'd sort of pricked up their ears when I'd said something in answer to, I think it was Vijayanandi asking me, how I practiced in daily life, saying that I tended to emphasize the giving rather than the taking in aspect of things. So the questioner had thought, maybe I could relook at this if I don't have to take in all this sort of darkness, perhaps then I could find a way of doing Tonglen. I have to do justice to everyone's different temperaments here. So when I was talking about how I practice in daily life, I mean, there will be times if somebody is sitting there in pain, something in me will just want to take that pain away, so that will definitely happen. But with my conditioning, I've noticed that personally, I'm always tending to focus, in terms of the four right efforts, I focus more on developing and maintaining the positive than I do on eradicating and preventing the negative, if you see what I mean. It's just with my conditioning, that seems to work better, to put the emphasis there. Because also at times in the past I've got into sort of, yes, I've got a similar conditioning to this questioner. So I can get into feeling guilty about, or used to be able to get into feeling guilty about what was still not right, and get into battling with the negative and trying to get rid of it, but actually in doing that, putting a lot more energy into it, sort of increasing it by thinking about it and struggling with it. And I remember many years ago telling this sort of fairy story about a kingdom where in the middle of the courtyard of the royal palace, a sort of black poison tree had appeared due to some evil sorcerer, presumably. And so right in the middle of the courtyard, there was this black poison tree, which just sort of would occasionally put out just one sort of black dry leaf. And it was sort of felt as if it was sort of poisoning everything around it. So the king sent for various people to come and sort of chop it down. But the more they tried to chop it down, the more it grew. And it just didn't work at all. So the king sort of got to his wit's end and didn't know what to do. And so sent out word for any sort of wise person who could help. There would be, of course, a great reward. King probably offered his daughter as reward or something like that. It's sort of thing that used to happen in those fairy stories from a couple of centuries ago. So one day some kind of a wizard turns up, and to cut this story fairly short, he offers the king a small sapling of another tree, which is a magic tree. And he says, well, just plant this tree near the poison tree in the same area, and just water it and feed it and look after it day after day after day. And so the king takes the tree and has it planted, and every day it's watered and it's cared for. And over time, it grows and it grows and it grows much taller than the poison tree. And it takes away the light from the poison tree, and its roots draw away the nourishment from the poison tree, so that tree just withers away and dies. And I think there is quite a Mahayana spirit about really focusing on what is enriching and what is inspiring, and all the beauty of the Dharma. I certainly feel it's helped me to move in a lot of good ways. So I still in Tonglen, I will at times, I'll feel the suffering taken away. But somehow for me, my emphasis is more on the giving of seeing that happening and the transformation that comes out of that. And as we said, we all need to make the Dharma our own. So we need to make these practices our own. Yes, we do them as they're given, because there's some wisdom in them as they're given. But then we find the ways that work for us as we are now. And we review that from time to time, to see how we've been transformed by the practice and what we need to do. With Tonglen, there is a whole way of practicing where you have a seed syllable in your heart which represents ego clinging. And all the suffering and difficulty that you breathe in all goes onto that and sort of destroys it. And some of the taking in the dark smoke is working against our aversion what's unpleasant in life, wanting to just sort of stay with what's nice and enjoyable and not take in those aspects. So there are values in the receiving, but I think the main value is just that sense of, yes, at times you just really want, somebody not to suffer from that cancer. You want them not to suffer from that, that difficult sort of glacier that just trips them up again and again and again. You just want to take it away. So, yeah, we need to honor that. But yes, I think we put the emphasis wherever the growth point in the practice is for us. That's fundamentally where we want to be. And the questioner also says that they find it difficult fitting the giving and receiving into the breath. It feels like they're doing different things every few seconds, even if they breathe quite slowly and meditatively. In which case, just let the breathing go. The breathing is secondary. The breathing is a kind of helpful aid to absorption, and it's a kind of metaphor for what we're doing. Yeah. But yeah, if you get really absorbed in some situation and there's a whole lot of receiving or a whole lot of giving, just go with that. Yeah. In all practice, we're looking to get to the result of the practice. We're not so bothered about getting gold stars for doing the practice, just as it was written on that piece of paper. Okay. Let's have a 20-minute break, shall we? And then we'll come back and explore something a bit more substantial. So 20 past. Still one or two people wandering around with coffee pots and things. I'll just give you another minute to stretch, sit down, drink your whatever you're drinking. Okay, we're getting there. I'll join you for a minute. So before the break, we did that meditation, all coming together in at our Bodhicitta Mandala, and we made some offerings to the Buddha, to the refuge, to whatever form those awakened qualities appeared in, if it appeared in a form for you. And we're going to be exploring more about offerings as we move further into the retreat. And then immediately before the break, I was answering one or two questions, and there was that one about Tonglen and giving and receiving. And I was saying I tended to focus on giving. Maybe there's a little bit more to say about all that, just to give a bit of a fuller picture. One is that I think for a lot of people, this is all outlined in that Tonglen Resources paper that you've been sent links to. For a lot of people, doing Tonglen from your own resources doesn't work terribly well. So one very effective way to do it is to have the refuge in your heart, so that you have the sense that, okay, it's the refuge that's doing the practice through me, so to speak. The refuge is sending out whatever's needed, and the suffering all dissolves into the refuge in our heart and disappears. One of the things about the having both the receiving and the giving aspect there emphasizes is that we're always in an exchange with life. Yeah. Well, it's even closer than that. That's creating a conceptual model where there's a me and there's life out there, and I'm interacting with it, but using that for now. We might unpick it a bit later in the retreat. That we're in communication, in an exchange, in an energy exchange with life all the time. And so in that sense, we're always, wherever our attention is, we're always giving and receiving. Yeah. We're receiving through all the senses. When we're with somebody else, there's an energetic exchange that goes on. So becoming more aware of that and sensitive to that partly breaks down that sense of me and here and everything else out there. But it also gives us a sense of the flow, the dance of this exchange that's happening moment by moment. So in a way, the giving and receiving, having both aspects there, kind of points that out. And there's also something with the receiving about fully taking a situation in. We say we take in another person, meaning that we gave them our attention and we fully experience them. So there's that aspect to it. There's a real taking in of what is there. And then you could say taking in the suffering is awareness of the first two noble truths, and sending out what relieves the suffering connects to the third and fourth noble truths. So in that way, you kind of have a complete practice. So where we put our emphasis will be kind of individual. It partly depends on what you're like, at least what you're like in this particular meditation that you're doing. Yeah, some of us tend more to sort of spiritual bypassing and kind of swerving around the unpleasantness of life and not really acknowledging how fully it's there, in which case we need to make sure that there's some full seeing of that and acknowledging of that and receiving of that fact, that truth. But then others of us sort of, funnily enough, sort of hang on to suffering, and our minds sort of gravitate towards what's difficult, and so yes, then we need to really be putting emphasis on the relief of suffering and the joy that comes when there's no suffering, and it's moving into those freer states, emphasizing that. Okay, so that just sort of spells that out a bit more. Are there any questions around that? Sort of follow on comments.
Darpakshini, can I
Yeah,
speak?
Darpakshini, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, the taking in, it's more to do with the fact that it's the dark, smoky light rather than the suffering itself. It's something about, from, I suppose, my conditioning. I don't know if others have that conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
It's Catholic conditioning.
I have that.
And I just find it really puts me off, makes me feel a bit sick, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm quite good at facing suffering in a way, Yeah. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is to be quite good at facing suffering. That's the main thing. And I think yes, it's if you've explored, what the issue is with the dark, smoky light, and it's come down to your conditioning, and it's not worth, sort of building up resistance to the practice, then yeah, just let the dark, smoky light go. It doesn't have to be there. Okay, anything else? Yes, Shanandi, hi. Are you unmuted? Can't hear.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Right. So what this discussion we've been having this morning reminds me of an incident some years ago on a train. I was sitting opposite a woman who was clearly experiencing pain in her hips.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a sort of Tonglen type of thing. And I don't know if it helped her at all, but later on I started experiencing pain in my hips, which is very unusual for me. And I realised I connected that with what I'd done on the train. I mean, I think it went over after a couple of days or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it was helpful or not. And whether there's a way of taking where you don't, it put me off doing the taking thing, because I thought I might just end up knackering my body basically. So I just wondered what you have, any pointers you have in relation to that.
It depends how you want to practice and which way you want to go with it. It's certainly a known phenomenon. There's a classic story of one of Atisha's teachers, yes, who is giving a teaching, and on the edge of, he may well be giving a teaching about love and compassion, but there's a crowd of people around, and then there are some dogs on the edge of the crowd, and they're kind of making a lot of noise and starting to bother people. And somebody at the back of the crowd gets up and starts throwing sort of stones in their direction. And some of them go away, but there's one very persistent dog, and the guy sort of throws a stone at it and hits it. And at that point, the teacher sort of falls back as if he's been struck by the stone. So I just tell you that story. I'm not going to interpret it particularly. There are, it's considered in the tradition possible that, you can take on certain things from people if you're really open to them. And I suppose what I'd partly like to know would be whether that woman's hips felt better for a couple of days after having that train journey or not. We don't know. But yes, we also have to be strategic in what we open ourselves to. We have to, never mind on a sort of meditative, more sort of psychic level, we have to take decisions about, how much difficulty we can take on, what we engage with, what we don't. So it's kind of the same on a meditative level as well. But yeah, what happened to you is certainly possible, and I think you take decisions about where you open yourself to somebody and where you don't. But the general way we want to go is to be not in a naive way, but in an open-hearted way, to be becoming more available to life and more open-hearted. And if at times that means that we suffer in the short term from that, well, maybe we do that.
It would feel worth it if I knew that she felt better. I wouldn't mind.
I know, yes. Maybe you can set up an experiment somehow, such an. Okay, I don't think I can say anything more useful for that. Prasada Badri?
Yeah, good morning. I was just wondering, could you say a little bit more about, you mentioned the refuge in your heart, and before you mentioned breathing in the black smoke and taking away the, ego in a way. Or the seed, I don't know, I didn't catch that fully.
Well, you take in the suffering and the causes of suffering.
Yeah. No, I was wondering about, you mentioned the seed, or did I misunderstand that?
Yes, earlier on I was saying that sometimes there is a way of practicing where you have a seed syllable in your heart which represents your ego clinging.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, sorry, I hadn't quite got to what you were referring to. Yeah, so you breathe in all the darkness, and it, as it were, overwhelms the ego clinging and dissolves it.
Okay.
Yeah. There's all sorts of methods, in the tradition. Tonglen's been practiced for over 1,000 years, so you find a lot of variations. As I say, I think for most people, the way to go is to have the qualities of awakening in your heart, and let those do the practice.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, good. All right, let's go on a bit. Gosh, is it really that time already? It really is that time already. Maybe better meditate. I'm consulting with my my team here. The tech team think we should meditate. So let's meditate. Yeah. Anyway, it's good to spend time getting clear about Tonglen, because not only is it part of our bodhicitta practice, but also it's a paradigm, a sort of example for all sorts of issues for us around giving and exposing ourselves to difficulties, all kinds of things. It's helpful to get as clear as possible. Okay. So coming back to neutral. All kinds of energy movements going on. Just letting them all happen as they are. Connecting with the earth. Opening to the sky. Awareness in the body. Noticing anything that would appreciate our attention. Coming into our heart center. And inviting into our heart center the awakened mind, the qualities of awakening. The Buddha or the Bodhisattva, our Yidam, however we sense or feel or see those qualities in our heart. I'll refer to the refuge. And with each in-breath, whatever sufferings, difficulties, frustrations, sadnesses, physical aches and pains, all dissolve into the refuge in our heart. And in exchange, there's love, fresh energy, vitality, new understanding, new freedom, all with the out-breath. Just focusing on whatever's most helpful, whatever we're drawn to. Now let's see if we can let go any ideas of what we feel should happen or we want to happen. Just trusting the refuge in our heart. Letting the refuge meditate. And now, focusing on a person or a situation where there's suffering. Perhaps if there's someone we're meditating for, particularly, or some situation, can call them to mind. Fully acknowledging the suffering that's there. And letting the refuge meditate. So with each in-breath, that suffering dissolves into the refuge in our heart. Completely dissolves into the heart of awakening. And with each out-breath, whatever's needed, whatever resources on every level, practical, emotional, Dharma resources, qualities, all flows out from the refuge in our heart. until all that suffering has disappeared. There's relief, there's release of energy. Joy, connection with the Dharma. With that, we relax and let go, nothing to do. Feeling the effects in our body and mind of the practice of having the refuge, meditate. And finally, we dedicate the merits. May these positive actions be a cause of gaining enlightenment for ourselves, for all of us meditating together, for all living beings, all finding the way to what's beyond suffering. Okay, thank you for that. And in the next session, we'll do some more meditation, and no promises, but we might start just playing with some offering mudras as well. Hope to see some of you there.